Joining us now, Corey Lewandowski, the author of the new book, Trump's Enemies. Hey, Corey, great to have you, man.
Thank you for having me, John. Good morning.
Tell me about the caravan. I want to start with that. Then we're going to get to a little bit to your new book out. Absolutely the fake news, dropping the coverage of the caravan, because now the president's policies, his jawboning, how he approached it, the temporary barriers, walls that the Army Corps of Engineers constructed, his warnings, now taking heed. He's had tremendous success with this caravan and how he's handled it. Why no coverage?
Well, John, because as you know and your listeners know, it doesn't fit the left-wing media narrative, right? The narrative was we should let everybody in. Look, even Geraldo Rivera, who has been very critical of this president at times, is saying that we need a wall on the southern border. But the narrative doesn't fit that anymore when the Democrats are seeing that you can't just allow, thousands of people to come into this country unprotected, with no recourse. And so this president has gone out and put policies in place to protect Americans, and now they've stopped covering this caravan because you remember, John, I think you were in the room when Jim Acosta said they're hundreds of miles away and they're barely coming and they're not going to come and they're all good people and you don't know there's criminals in there. Well, we do know there were criminals in there. Mm-hmm. And this president said if you want to seek asylum, there is a process to do that. But the way the asylum process works is when you leave your country, the first country you cross into, you have to seek asylum from. Mexico has offered political asylum to these people. They don't want it. And the president's point, which he made on Twitter last week, was a very good one. If their country is such a terrible place to be, why is it they're carrying the flags of their country as they march through Central America to come here? I don't understand it, and I think the American people have now seen through once again the fake news stories and have sided with the president on this issue again.
I have to say that this has been one of the biggest successes for the president and just people now beginning to understand that he means business, but a great success. And when you look at the fact that the government of Mexico gave 1,000 work visas to some of the people in the caravan who legitimately applied for those. They gave 1,000. Over 2,000 being repatriated, going back to their home countries. Now you have to ask yourself, if you came 2,000 miles and you couldn't get in, you couldn't bum rush your way in or come in illegally, you couldn't do that, but you don't want to wait there in line for an asylum application and you're willing to trek the other 2,000 miles and have to go back. Doesn't that say to you that you probably made the decision you were not going to get granted asylum? I mean, isn't that a logical conclusion?
It absolutely does, John. But look, this was, as you know, a left-wing opportunity to try and draw attention to the issue of illegal immigration before the election. We know that this was funded by people on the left. We know that the media has their own narrative that they want to perpetuate as it relates to this caravan, and now it's all falling apart once again. And what is amazing to me is we have seen this so many times now with Donald Trump. He calls something out and, he's chastised unbelievably on the mainstream media outlets for days, if not weeks on end. And then guess what? After he's proven correct, dead silence. This is the MO, the standard operating procedure for all of these networks. And then once he's actually proven correct, they just stop talking about it, doesn't fit the narrative, and they say, well, it's really not an issue anymore. It's only an issue when it's designed to hurt candidate and then now President Trump.
Look, absolutely. That's why all of the coverage is stopped, because it would have to be positive coverage, and they can't find anything negative, so they just move on to something else. We're with Corey Lewandowski, former campaign manager, Donald Trump for president campaign, the man that engineered the tremendous Trump nomination victory, eviscerating 16 well-qualified candidates during the 2015 nominating election. He's also now a noted author of 2 books. The first book, Let Trump Be Trump. If you've not gotten that, get that. You can buy a package, you also get that. And then also his new book, Trump's Enemies. Corey, the response to your book, Trump's Enemies, has been off the charts. I went to your book signing, obviously, the other day at Trump International Hotel. That thing was packed. The reaction outside of Washington, I know you've traveled some. How has it been?
Well, John, it's so humbling because Dave Bossie and I wrote this book to expose the people who are trying to prevent the president's agenda from going forward. And we did it in a linear fashion. We talked about it in a logical sense that anybody who wants to know what really happened both during the campaign, through the transition period, and ultimately still going on now while he's the president should pick up this book. And we call out who his enemies are. Some of those enemies, many of those enemies, were in the intelligence community. The Comeys, the Clappers, the Brennans, the McCabe, Strzok, Page, all of those guys, all those bad actors. And we go through exactly what they did, and the American people should be very afraid that those people were using their badges and their positions of influence in law enforcement to spy on Americans because they didn't like their politics. That's a very scary thing. But we also talk about the media and what they've done to this president, the members of Congress, both Republicans and Democrats, who are the enemies. And we talk about those people in the White House, the Rob Porters of the world, the Gary Cohns of the world, the Sean Spicer of the world, the H.R. McMasters of the world, all of those people, plus the Rex Tillersons, the people who never supported Donald Trump when he ran for office, likely didn't vote for him on Election Day, but found a way to weasel their way into his administration to stop his agenda. We call them out, and I'll tell you what, it is long, long overdue.
Well, there's no question the deep state is alive and well. And some of the people that you've called out in the West Wing, it's kind of unbelievable how this whole thing came to be. We're with Corey Lewandowski, the author of Trump's Enemies. Got to buy it. Here's all you have to do. You can go to Amazon.com. You can go to your favorite bookstore, B. Dalton, whoever it is, or you can go to one of his book signing parties. But get it by Christmas. Put it under the tree, because this is, along with Let Trump Beat Trump, two of the best reads on President Trump, the campaign, and what is actually happening. Trump's Enemies. Buy it. Now, I couldn't put it down the other day when it came out. I read the thing in Charlottesville. I was there for a weekend with my son going to UVA to check it out, and I was up all night reading it. As soon as you open it up, you can't put it down. It is addictive. Trump's Enemies. Corey, I want to get to Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen, Trump's former lawyer. You knew him. I remember the first time I went to Trump Tower, you told me, you probably remember this. I said, any do's and don'ts? You said, don't meet with Michael Cohen. That's what you told me. Don't meet with him.
I'm like Nostradamus, only smarter, I guess.
I know.
I just know these things, right?
I mean, it was the first time, and I was just up there. I was doing media, and I came in your office and all that and saw that, and I said, any do's and don'ts? And when I was vice chair of the campaign in Virginia, and you said, don't meet with Michael Cohen. That was your only don't. And that was why that was May or something of 2015. So you were right there. Now he comes out and basically says that he lied to Congress, and now they were negotiating Trump Tower during the campaign. Corey, I want you to get your comment on that. But the other thing I want to mention is I remember there were days in the campaign in 2015 in the nominating process that I would ask you what's going on today, and you would say we've canceled all events because the president has to deal with some of the issues going on with his business because he's still running a business. Remember that? I mean, there were numerous days where he was not available. Remember that?
Yeah, John, so, if you remember, and we were chastised for this in the media once again, Donald Trump liked to fly back to New York City so he could be in his own bed at night after we just put in an 18 or 20-hour day. But the other reason he came back to New York City is because he was running an international business in Trump Organization, and he was doing that from the 26th floor of Trump Tower, where he had hundreds of people working for him, doing deals, licensing deals, new opportunities in front of him. So while he was a candidate, he was still a businessman, which, by the way, John, there's absolutely nothing illegal about. And as you know, candidates who run for office almost never give up their day jobs. Governors don't quit being governors. Senators don't quit being senators. Businessmen don't walk away from their companies in perpetuity, right? So Donald Trump was no different. As a candidate for office, he continued to run his private company, which is perfectly legal. And so we find out that Michael Cohen lied. I don't even know why this is a revelation. I used to say, when Michael Cohen's lying, his lips are moving. Right. He was a bad guy. He's always been a liar. Nothing has ever changed, and is finally coming back home to roost because this is a guy who did what was good for Michael Cohen. He's now been convicted of and admitted to lying on his taxes, lying about his taxi cab medallion business, not paying his taxes, IRS fraud, banking fraud, fraud after fraud after fraud. And so guess what we got? We have a fraud. That's who Michael Cohen is, and that's who he's always been. And now that Michael goes and says, well, I admit I lied to Congress about a transaction that never transpired, but we were still talking about it, it's not a newsworthy issue other than the fact that Michael lied. And look, when you lie, when you perjure yourself, when you don't tell the truth, there are consequences for that, and Michael's going to go to jail for it.
Well, look, and what did you make of the president's tweet saying that, look, the guy's lied, he's lied on multiple occasions, and he should pay for it to the fullest extent of the law?
Well, look, my take is on this. My take on that is this. Unfortunately, we have seen a one-sided justice system. And I'm not here to praise Michael Cohen because there's nothing to praise him for. But what I am here to say is Michael has lied to Congress, and he's now going to go to jail for that. But we also know that Jim Comey has lied to Congress. We know that Clapper has lied to Congress. We know this unequivocally, and there only seems to be one side of the justice system that works, which is if you're against Donald Trump, you're on the Trump team, you're on the Trump agenda, you are prosecuted. If you're on the Hillary Clinton team and you want to lie, that's okay. They give you immunity if you want to talk to the FBI. There has not been one prosecution, not one, from anybody on the Hillary Clinton campaign team so far, including Podesta, who never registered as a foreign agent. And it's okay, nothing to see here. And look, I'm not here to justify what Michael Cohen did. I think he should go to jail, but I don't think it's fair that only one side of the people on the conservatives are being prosecuted for these crimes, and nobody on the Hillary side has been so far.
I think that is the number one issue, is the selective justice, Corey, that we have going on. As far as Michael Cohen is concerned, again, when you were at the campaign, you absolutely would not meet with him. So there was something you must have known early on that didn't fit right. You told people like me that came in, the one thing, don't meet with Michael Cohen. Even if you bump into him in the bathroom, don't talk with him. So obviously you knew there was something going on there. Getting to the Mueller investigation now, Mark Warner, senator from Virginia, comes out the other day, and again he's saying there's more smoking guns out there. But it looks like all Manafort really has is two things. The Manafort indictments, which had nothing to do with the campaign. Paul Manafort, just a bad guy, has nothing to do with the Trump campaign or anything else. And now he's got people that the investigation itself has criminalized. General Flynn, now other people that have lied to Congress, Cohen being one of them, or lied as part of the investigation. 18 months, $100 million. What do they have?
Well, they have nothing, and look, here's the problem is this thing has to come to an end. We've now seen almost 2 years of an investigation. Not one scintilla of evidence has shown that there was any collusion or cooperation between the Trump campaign and any Russians because it didn't exist. Bob Mueller has to send his report to the Department of Justice, and I would call on the Department of Justice to make that report available so that we can see what really transpired. Because if Bob Mueller is an honest broker, if he wants to keep his reputation, I hope his report shows that the individual campaign that actually did try to collude with Russia to impact the outcome of the election was the Clinton campaign. And I hope his investigation shows that the $5 million that they paid to Perkins Coie, the law firm, which ultimately went to the British spy Steele to go put together the false dossier, which was given to Bruce Orr of the Justice Department through his wife Nellie Orr, who worked for Fusion GPS, should all be in there. And then we know that Jim Comey took that fake dossier, handed it to Donald Trump in a meeting in January of 2017 in Trump Tower, and then immediately turned around and leaked that information so that it would discredit the president-elect and the campaign and the success that they just had. So, look, there is nothing here that shows any collusion because it never existed, and the individuals who lied to Mueller are being held account for that. But let me tell you something. General John Flynn was interviewed by one Peter Strzok, who is the disgraced former FBI agent who was in charge of the Hillary Clinton investigation. I don't understand how a small cabal of bad actors, Comey, McCabe, Strzok and Page, the lovers, and Jim Baker, the general counsel for the FBI, and Bruce Orr had so much influence over the Hillary Clinton email scandal, which they gave her a pass on, and were the ones who put in place and started this entire fake Russia hoax investigation and allowed it to waste tens of millions of dollars of taxpayer money and years against this president from being successful. These 4 or 5 people, not one has been held accountable yet, and we're still waiting for the former deputy director of the FBI, Andy McCabe's criminal referral to go through for lying under oath. When do they stop perp walking these guys out in handcuffs? Because if it was me or you, John, and we lied to the FBI like that, we'd be in jail.
There'd be no doubt we'd be in jail and we'd be bankrupt and our families would be destitute, because that's how the system works. Because the government, when they go down this path, they have unlimited resources. I mean, if you look what happened to General Flynn, I mean, he's completely bankrupted, all of his savings gone, all of his retirement gone. And that's why he had to plea out. I mean, you simply run out of money because the federal government goes after you. They have unlimited resources. Mueller has unlimited resources. He has no budget, no time frame, hire anybody he wants. He's got, 60 lawyers in there. And so this thing goes on and on and on, and the investigation has come up empty-handed, absolutely zero. I agree with you. Let's get this wrapped up. Let's get his findings out, and then let's make it open to the public so everybody can see that look, any of us that were involved in his campaign know what the conclusion is. There was no collusion at all at any time. So the whole thing is asinine. But we're going to go forward on that. I got 2 minutes. Corey, talk about campaign 2020. 2018's over. We all know what the result was. Not exactly what we thought it would be, but not that bad. But of the Democrats are going to end up, Corey, with about an 18 seat, I think, majority. There's still one other one out there has to be settled. 16 of those 18 seats, though, 16 seats were carried by a Democrat in the midterms that Trump carried in 2016 when he was on the ballot. 16. They only have an 18 lead, so it's almost the opposite of the midterms in 2018, where the Democrats are going to be on the defensive. I could see us running the table, winning all those 16 back. Obviously, anything that we still the Republicans have 199 now. They hold those. Can the Republicans win the House back in 2020?
So, John, the short answer is yes, but let me just go back to one thing on the Mueller investigation. It's very important. With the Democrats taking over the House of Representatives, I am certain that Adam Schiff and Swalwell and these guys are going to try and make this a political issue and try and continue to make referrals to the Mueller investigation and try and bring more people back to the House, because that's what they do. And so I just want to caution your listeners that in 4 weeks, I am sure little Adam Schiff and these guys are going to be going after people who've testified in front of the House and want them to come back and testify to continue this investigation. So I just wanted to say that.
Okay.
As it relates to 2020, look, here's where we are. People were very concerned about the U.S. Senate races up in 2020 because the Republicans have so many. But most of those seats are actually in very good Trump states, except North Carolina, which Donald Trump won, and we've got a candidate in the ballot in North Carolina, one in Colorado, and one in Maine. Those are going to be, as we sit here right now, the 3 most competitive Republican incumbent House Senate districts in the country, those 3 seats. Donald Trump on the ballot is going to do exactly what he did in 2016, which is carry people across the finish line. Ron Johnson, Pat Toomey, those candidates who were in states that were very competitive, who saw a significant boost in election turnout, which propelled them to victory, was due in large part by Donald Trump. And what you're going to see in these House races, and what I hope these members of the House have learned, John, is when they look back at their election in the last month now, is those candidates that embrace Donald Trump and the Trump-Pence agenda and the policies of that administration were successful. Go look at Andy Barr in Kentucky. In a tough congressional district, he brought Donald Trump in, and they won. Go look at the races in North Dakota, South Dakota, Georgia, Ohio governor's race, Florida governor and Senate race. We can go right down the list. The candidates who supported Trump, Pence, and wanted them to come in won. And don't forget, we had a number of very close races in the House where those races were decided by 1,000 votes or less without Donald Trump on the ballot. When Trump is on the ballot, those Republicans turn out at a higher number. They know what's at stake, and you will see the Republicans take back the House, hopefully, in 2 years, and hold their majority in the Senate and get Donald Trump elected by a much larger margin, actually, than he even won the last election.
We're going to win in 2020, only bigger, right? No question about it.
Look, I absolutely think that that's the plan. I think that's exactly right, and I'm very hopeful about that.
New Hampshire's in play. Clinton won that by a small percentage. Minnesota's in play. Those are just two states right off the bat that Clinton carried, that I think we carry in 2020, along with everything else. Corey, we're out of time. Hey, buy Corey's book, man.
Thank you,
got
John.
to do this. Trump's Enemies. You can get it at Amazon. Go wherever. Trump's Enemies. It's also on our website. You can go there, johnfredericksradio.com. It'll take you, just click it. You go right to Amazon. And you can buy either Let Trump Be Trump. You can buy Trump's Enemies. Or for Christmas, buy them both.